So we're here with Arizona Senator and, in fact, State Senate President Karen Fann. Thank you, Senator Fann, for allowing us this time in your beautiful office to talk about Arizona election audit and related topics. I wanted to start out. I know that there are, I don't even know how many people who would want to have this opportunity to talk with you about this. I'm sure you're getting interview requests all the time. Why the Western Journal? Why would you accept ours and not be sitting down with, say, I'll pick an easy one, MSNBC?
Because I have no problem talking to the media as long as I know the media is going to be fair and unbiased. And quite honestly, everything I've done with Western Journal or read in Western Journal, you have always been forthright and honest and tried to show both sides of every fact. And those are the reporters I love to talk to.
Well, thank you. We do our best. we don't get it right every time, but we do our best.
It shows.
Thank you. So a couple of questions right off the bat about last week's hearing and some of the sort of fallout that's come, some of the information and maybe misinformation in some cases. There are two questions that have really been big, I think. One is about the 74,000 mail-in ballots, theoretically, or absentee ballots that apparently there's no record of having received requests for those. Can you tell me where your thinking is on that now? How much of a problem is that? Is it a problem? And where you think that might wind up?
So let me back up on this conversation just to lead into exactly how we got to this point. The audit, which is the first of its kind in its nation, no one has ever done this, so it's been quite the experience for the auditors. Initially, they thought it was going to take 4 or 5 weeks to get this done, and we're into our 3rd month already.
Right.
Why is that? Is because, first of all, it's never been done, and so they're learning new tricks and tools and everything else that they need to be able to get this done down to a more efficient process. So the next state that does it, it's going to be a piece of cake for them. But so it's been a challenge. But what has been more of a challenge is the fact that Maricopa County has intentionally done everything in their power to sabotage it, to withhold information, to be less than honest with the public about this. And so it's created a huge problem. When we talk about things that they have not turned over in the subpoena at all, things that they have trying to say, we're not going to give you the routers because it might jeopardize a deputy sheriff, that is a total misinformation. And if they thought that it was so critical, which it's not, but if they did, why is the Maricopa County Sheriff's Department sharing the same routers with the election departments and a couple of other departments? When you have Katie Hobbs that is saying, I'm not going to certify these machines anymore, and therefore Maricopa County says, yeah, well, we're going to buy almost $3 million worth of machines and build the Senate for it, that makes no sense either. Because she says she can't certify as to whether they were tampered with by the auditors. Well, first of all, the auditors that are working on the machines, it's called Cipher, they are not only qualified, but Ben Cotton is also a certified expert witness with the courts. Then on top of that, think about what she just said. She can't certify that they weren't messed with. If that's the case, then how did Pro V&V or the other companies, how did they certify the machines to begin with before the election happened?
Right.
And certify the machines after the election to make sure there was no internet. So as you can see, they're starting to stumble over their own words and not making sense. So along with that, so not only has the auditors had problems in us getting the information we can from Maricopa County, they have purposely, they withheld the blue tally sheets. We have not gotten the chain of custody. We have not gotten the routers, the passcodes, the fobs. Interesting, what we did find out in Thursday's hearing is that they don't have the passwords. The only people that have the passwords is Dominion. So Maricopa County doesn't even have control over their own election system. Only Dominion has those passwords. And they have 24-hour-a-day access to those computers. Come and go as you want. Not saying that they've done anything wrong, and I'm certainly not picking on them. We have no reason to believe they did something. But the mere fact is, at this point, what we do know is Maricopa County didn't have control over their own election
It
system.
opens up the possibility.
It opens up that possibility. So, and that should never be that way. What we have found also is that the password hasn't been changed in 2 years, and multiple people are sharing the password. I had somebody that worked at the election place down there and said, oh yeah, it was not unusual for somebody to yell across the room and say, hey Joe, what was that password again? And he'd yell it back. That's not
Super
secure.
secure, yeah.
That's not secure. So it has taken a long time. We originally did not even want to put any results out until the final report, because an audit is an audit.
Right.
Whatever the numbers are, that's what the numbers are. The reason why we had to do this hearing last Thursday is because the public needed a lot of answer. What's taking so long? Where are we at in the process? So we had to explain exactly what was taking so long. We had to explain that we haven't gotten the chain of custody. We haven't gotten any. However, the minute those ballots showed up on our doorstep, and don't forget the hundreds of thousands of dollars of extra tax dollars that have gone to pay for this, because Maricopa County refused to let us do it at their facility. So we had to rent the Coliseum. We have had to pay for 24-hour security indoors and outdoors for this entire time to make sure those ballots are secure. The equipment that needed to be purchased to do the audit, but to be able to do a 24/7 live streaming so everybody could see these at every given time. The ballots, when they showed up, literally they are in boxes that are literally just stuffed in there. They're supposed to be organized. There's supposed to be these pink sheets between that says there's certain numbers there, certain number of ballots there. They weren't. There was 3 pink sheets stuck together there. We've had ballots stuck down the side of it. So the auditor, literally, in trying to preserve everything the exactly way it is, had to very carefully take those out to do what we needed to make sure we put them back exactly as we found them, even though it was a mess. We found a number of other things. Those ballots should have been turned over to the treasurer for security many, many, many weeks ago, and they weren't. We know that those ballots, the boxes, should be secured with security tape. They're not. They were just plain packing tape sort of thing. Just so you know, we are returning them better than we had. They will have security tapes on them so that we will know if anybody tampered with them. So when we get to the numbers, to your question, is when the vendor gave us the numbers, this is based on everything that they have come up with to date. And all it is 2 and 2 is not adding up to 4. We're not saying that there's any intentional fraud. They are not saying anything else, but what they're saying is that the numbers are not adding up. Now, is that because there's information that Maricopa County is withholding from us so that we cannot figure out exactly where these ballots are supposed to come from? Or is there a logical explanation? Or are they purposely withholding information because they don't want us to know what the real answer is? Again, I'm not trying to throw questions out there in the sense of questioning their motives, but what I will say is that it's apparent they do not want this audit to continue, and they are not cooperating in any way whatsoever.
So you said Maricopa County was being less than honest with the public. Are they lying to the Arizona public?
Well, I do know for a fact that there was a supervisor that when we had that hearing back in December with the Judicial Committee, we actually choreographed the whole thing the week before, so we made sure nobody was blindsided. And part of that is the supervisor was told right up front, please be aware there will be 2 subpoenas that are going to be already prepared. The chairman of the committee is going to have them at the end of the committee hearing. Mm-hmm. So, supervisor, if you don't want to be a part of that, just go ahead and sign off so that, but I said, if you don't, but here it is, it's going to happen. I don't want you blindsided. He goes, great, Karen, thank you for that. Monday we had the hearing. He signed off before the end when we were doing that. They issued the subpoenas, and the next morning he was quoted in the paper, the media, that he felt like he was slapped in the face. He had no idea these subpoenas were coming. That was a flat-out lie. So, yes. The supervisor, one of the other supervisors, the new chairman, had agreed to do a forensic audit with us. We had talked about doing this at their facilities, not to move those ballots, not to move those machines. And we had agreed to do a forensic, but after they had an executive came back out, now understanding he's only one of 5 votes.
Sure.
But whatever happened in that executive committee, they came back and said, no, we're going to do our own audits and we're going to use Pro V&V and SLI. And I said, those aren't forensic auditing companies. They're not even auditing companies. They are authorized to certify the machines. And one of those companies are the company that certified the machines to begin with. So you're hiring somebody to certify their own work.
Check their own work, yeah.
And I said, this is not a forensic audit. This is not tying the numbers together the way an audit would. Another thing is that they're saying, oh, that they didn't want to cooperate with us because these aren't certified auditors. They know full well there are no certified auditors. That was the first thing I did when we started doing this, is I called the FEC and I said, can you give me a list of certified auditors that do this kind of work? Here's what's going on. Here's what we want to know. And I was told, Karen, there are no certified auditors. We don't certify auditors.
Audit has never
It's never been done before.
Who would be certified?
Right. So they do not certified auditors. There aren't any. So that's when it took me down the trek of hundreds and hundreds of hours of just making phone calls and trying to track down who maybe has done pieces of this. And part of that whole deal is that when we talk about the vendor we went with, he does have some experience, even though some of the media is trying to say not, but he does. But remember, he put the team together, and all the phone calls I made and the referrals and everything, no one has ever done any of this. They've said, President Fann, we've done this piece on part of an audit here. We've done this.
Yeah.
We did do this. We have counted ballots over here, to the extent of 2,500. But nobody does the whole forensic audit, right?
Yeah.
So consequently, Cyber Ninjas is one of the firms that came forward and said, let me put a team together. And so you see that the team, this is not just him. This is Cypher with Ben Cotton. This is Wake Technology, who has done audits before in the past. It is other forensic analysis people that will do the analysis on the ballots themselves. But you're not hearing about that in the liberal media, are you?
Right, no. Yeah, checking your own work that's how I passed high school French, so I'm kind of in favor of it, but it doesn't seem like a good way to audit an election. Sorry,
It's not.
Mademoiselle Lord, for that. But.
Well, and I'll tell you one other point I want to make about what the report that we did. So not only about the 74,000 ballots that we're having questions about, but boxes that were clearly marked as duplicates. So we know that the procedure is if there's a spoiled ballot over here, and they have to make a duplicate to make sure it goes through the machine for whatever reason,
Sure.
You're supposed to have corresponding numbers on those. So if this was ballot number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then the duplicate needs to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we know that there's only one duplicate ballot, and that one duplicate ballot ties to one spoiled ballot. We have all of these thousands of ballots that we have been identified from Maricopa County. These are duplicate ballots, but there's no corresponding numbers on them. So we can't tell you for sure, are they duplicates or not? And why didn't they follow their own procedures on this one? It makes no sense. Then you end up with all the other questions about Adrian Fontes. When he's out there, remember when he said, oh, if you make a mistake, just take X out the ballots,
Right.
or then your choice, and mark a new one. Everybody knows you don't do that. I mean, that's just ludicrous that was even something that a county recorder would even suggest to begin with, much less what they were trying to do is just send ballots out to everybody. It's just ridiculous.
Well, and that brings us to another kind of recurring question that's come up since the hearing. And before that, with the so-called Sharpie Gate. Can you explain where the auditors are on that topic and where your current thinking is as far as is this going to turn out to be a big problem for Maricopa County, or do you think this is going to be explainable? Where do you think that is?
Well, I think it's a problem in the sense is, once again, there is mistruths that are being put out there or misstatements. So, for example, we can go back to an actual public document that they had on their website, and they put out there and said, we only use 4 types of paper for our ballots, and those ballots are, it's a special kind of paper that has, I believe it's a titanium film on it, if you will, which actually prevents people from the ballots from seeping through on the other side, right? Well, we know for a fact by the hearing last Thursday that there is a lot of ballots out there that they mark through. So clearly,
and images of them,
right? So clearly, that was misinformation when they said we only use 4 types of paper. We also now have affidavits from people that actually worked at the polls, and because of the on-demand ballots that they print, that they were not using any special paper. As a matter of fact, if they ran out of paper, somebody was sent down to the nearest office supply store to pick up more paper.
Wow.
So that in itself is, okay, obviously that's not secure paper. Obviously you're going to have bleed throughs. They originally said, well, even if there was bleed through, it's designed, the ballot's designed so that there's no way we could do it. But you saw Thursday copies of actual ballots that not only bled through, but here was the marking for a candidate, and here was the marking for another candidate that apparently bled through from the other side. And it is within this target area of where the machines scan those ballots, which might explain why there were so many more adjudicated ballots this year than ever. I don't have the statistic in front of me, and I cannot even remember where I quoted it, but I do remember back in April, there was a statement that was made from Maricopa County that said that there was over 11% adjudicated ballots. I'm still trying to find that as my backup to do that, but clearly that is way more than they have ever had. And so that explains that.
Sure.
But why? So why aren't they talking to us about it? Why aren't they saying, yeah, we do believe there could be these problems here, but they're not? Instead, they've set up a Twitter account on social media and working in concert with the liberal media of trying to cover any mistakes that maybe they had made or anything. If I don't understand why they want to fight this out or do this, trying to defend themselves on a Twitter site, rather than just sit down with us and say, let's go through this and see if we can find some explanations for you.
Yeah, you'd think that they just want to get to the bottom of it.
You would think so.
So why don't they? What's the motivation?
My personal opinion is I do believe that the Board of Supervisors, and probably under advice by their attorneys, probably said, we're pretty sure that that the elections were not done exactly according to the books, that procedures are followed. And the reason why I believe this is 2.5 years ago, the Board of Supervisors actually came to me right here in this office and said, we have serious problems with Adrian Fontes in the 2018 election. We're going to hire somebody that will be a liaison between the Board of Supervisors and Adrian Fontes to oversee this. So I already know for a fact that there was problems on the 18 and their concerns not only from within them, but also with the public, all the questions that started coming up back in 18 about a lot of issues. And then based on everything the vendor is starting to find about the condition of the ballots and everything going on, I believe that maybe their attorney said, you know what, we think there might have been some missteps going on. I'm not saying intentional. I'm saying that it's very clear that procedures were not followed accordingly.
So to clarify about 2018, you're not saying that you think the results of the 2018 election were incorrect. You're saying there were some abnormalities about how things were handled in 2018 that could lead to something like this, perhaps. That could just lead to more questions being asked and maybe undermine voter confidence in the elections.
Absolutely, 100%. We have never claimed fraud. We have never claimed, as I said, we've never disparaged the computer company or the software company. But what we have said is, yes, in 2018, there were a lot of questions about things that were going on there. And we also know that in 2020, as we saw, there are a lot of questions about what was going on here. The polling that has been done showing that 45% of voters in Arizona think there is a serious problem, to the extent that the question even was, do you think there's fraud?
Right.
So I've got to believe that number is going to be even higher, because if somebody had said, do you believe that there was fraud at this point, I would have said no, because there's no fraud proven. But if 45% actually said yes, then I've got to believe that number's got to be much higher if people think that there was maybe not fraud, but obviously a lot of things that we're not, we need answers for.
Yeah.
Election integrity is what this is about.
I hate to use the word incompetence, that seems so strong, but some level of malfeasance or failing to abide by procedure.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So what then would be the next step? Joe Biden won Arizona, as you know, by fewer than 11,000 votes. Let's just theorize that, hypothetically, that the results of this audit call that number of votes or more into question, such that there is reason, and I realize we're not saying today that there is reason to do that, and I don't want to mislead anybody.
Right.
But if that were the case, down the road we have enough information, we say, yeah, there are 20,000 votes that are in question. We don't really know what they were supposed to be. What then would the next steps be? I know you're on record as having said that the Senate can't just decertify the election. We don't just start over. Donald Trump doesn't take the White House in August. That's not the plan. So what would the next steps look like?
Okay, so and to confirm exactly what you said is, I would like to still get this on the record as well.
Sure.
This has never been about Donald Trump. This
Right.
has never been about decertifying the electors. This is about election integrity. This is about a lot of people with a lot of questions, rumors about types of papers that were used, all sorts of things. And the only sole goal that we have at this point right now, and have up to this point, is to answer those questions.
This is really more about 2022 than it is about 2020.
Exactly, exactly. So, so if there are rumors out there, let's dispel those rumors. No, there were no, nefarious ballots flown in here, or some of the things that were out there. Let's show them that though that's not true. Put that out of your mind. It didn't happen. If there were questions about the way ballots were handled or of anything of that nature, then let's uncover it. Let's fix the problem so that people know next year their votes will be important and they will count and they can trust our system. That's what it's been. Now, the question did come up, well, what if you do find something that would be of a nature that would change the votes?
Right.
So there's a two-part there, is that it could change the votes, but would it change who they were voted for? Remember, when we do a forensic audit and let's say those votes change, it could be that those votes change, that there are more votes for Biden than they thought there were, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's what an audit is. The numbers are the numbers. On the flip side, it could show that there were enough problems that maybe Joe Biden didn't win. The mere fact that there was this small margin between the two candidates, that in itself is pretty amazing of all the people that voted. But that's not to say that anybody's right or wrong until we actually do the counts and say, yeah, we confirm that or we dispute that. So if, in fact, to your question, if in fact there were enough votes that really would affect the outcome of any races that we are auditing, then the first thing that has to be done is you have to prove that. This is not just a report to a committee or anything else. You know for a fact it's going to go to court.
Right.
Because everybody and their mother is going to be taking us to court, right? I mean, that's kind of, it's not the joke, but it's the deal. We're going, if we have to go to court, make sure we have everything lined up so we can prove everything 6 ways from Sunday. And everybody says, it's not if, it's when. Because we know. So you cannot just arbitrarily say, oh yeah, here's the proof and we're going to decertify. No, there will be a process. And the first process is it will go to court. And so that it can be adjudicated either by a judge or a Supreme Court or a jury or anything.
Who would take that to court? Would the Senate? take that to court?
Oh gosh, everybody's going to take it to
Well, yeah,
court.
okay,
Based on all the
yeah.
FOA requests I'm getting. I'm sure the media will
That's
take
fair.
us, and the Democrats will take us.
That's
Everybody will, right? Biden will take us to court. Mark Kelly, everybody.
Right.
So yeah, this will be a huge deal, and it will not stop at a low-level court, I should say, just a superior court. It will go on up to, it will be appealed, no doubt. But let's just say hypothetically,
Right.
that it does prove by clear court order that there was a problem with the election, the votes weren't counted correctly, and in fact that somebody else won other than Biden. Then at that point, according to our Constitution and according to our rules, by the House and Senate, can't be just the Senate, it would have to be both bodies, that we would call ourselves into session or call a special session if we were already in session for the purpose of putting the question on the board to decertify the electors. And that is an option that can be done, but it has to be done by the House and the Senate. And you have to be able to pass that with at least a simple majority. And in this case, the Senate would be 16 votes, and in the House would be 31 votes. And I can tell you, we don't have 16 and 31.
Okay.
If somewhere down the path, if there was a clear, convincing evidence, and it could take quite some time to get there.
Sure.
That's a huge if, but if it would be, then we would have to get those 16 and 31 votes. Otherwise, there's nothing we can do about it other than fix the election laws to make sure this doesn't happen again next year or any future years.
Are there changes you anticipate having to make for 2022 and 2024?
Yes, absolutely, certainly. Just the way the ballots were handled, the chain of custody, the way that they were brought in once they were taken out of their security bags and not resecured. There's a number of those things that we definitely want to look at. Questions about the machines, as we mentioned, the passwords, and who really has control of the election system. It should not be a vendor.
No, it should not.
Right. So that should be a clear change in our statutes. There's going to be, that's at the very least, which is what we set out to be, first of all, is answer our questions. And those were our questions, and we're getting answers to those so we can make those changes.
Okay. And then what do? So kind of switching gears a little bit. Audit's over. Whatever processes are going to be followed are going to be followed through the courts, whatever they might be. And you can sit back and breathe a sigh of relief, and that's behind you. What's next? What would you like to be spending your time on once this is kind of in the rearview mirror?
Probably retiring. I will tell you, this has been tough. It's
Sure.
been tough on everybody. It has been the emails have been out of control. Not just for me, but our members as well. Mm-hmm. There has been amazing. The good thing is there, about 2/3 of them are nice and they're positive, and we're praying for you. And they're all over the country, some from across the world, saying that there is nothing more important to us than our election integrity. And if you think about that, that's really correct, because we vote on people that are supposed to be most aligned with what we want as a society. We want to make sure that they are honest and ethical people. We want to make sure that if we're going to go to war, we're going to go to war for a good reason.
Sure.
We want to make sure that our taxes aren't being abused. We want to make sure that we have safe cities and towns, and that we're going to have police protection and everything. We don't want corruption. We don't want crime. Now, and look at the basic fundamental rights, our freedom of speech, our freedom of religion, our freedom to bear arms and protect our families. All of that is tied to our votes. Mm-hmm. All of that. Because depending on who we vote for, that is all under attack. And it's very apparent right now you can see what's going on. The change of regime of what happened from last year to the new regime, it's night and day. And so this is why this is so important, that people know that the elections are always honest and clear in what the people want to do. So for that, what I'm going to say is that I'm so thankful and blessed that I'm getting good emails, The third bad emails are really bad. I've never seen so many 4 and 5 letter words strung together in one sentence. Death threats. Got an envelope with white powder in here. And unfortunately, a lot of it is being stirred up by the liberal media. And it's pretty interesting how it comes. But it hurt a lot when it first started out. I'm at the point now where I really don't care that much anymore. This is important. It's important for all the best reasons and the good reasons. And no matter what anybody says about it's trying to spin it into something it's not, I know deep down, I know my members know deep down that we have one goal and one goal only, and this is election integrity, and I was trying to do it. So on the note of where I go from here, I'm pretty burnt out right now.
Yeah.
So you might have to ask me 6 months from now where I'm going.
Hopefully we're done in 6 months. So I was going to ask you, I figured you must be getting threats. Is that anything that you've taken seriously? Do you have reason to believe that there's, actual danger to you or to your members here? Potential actual danger?
It's escalated. I can tell you when this whole thing first started, they were just kind of side remarks, one thing or another. And then, as I said, then it's kind of escalated a couple of months ago was the white envelope. And so we had to go through all of the security procedures around here. And luckily they tested it and found out it was antihistamine that somebody had ground up into a powder. So it was somebody obviously that was not serious about that.
And too much time on their hands.
But yes, I noticed that the more that the media ramps this up and the more that there's this information, it does stir up a certain segment of the population.
Sure.
And I can see the ramping up. That was, there was an email last week that said something about my family should die or something like that. So I just turn it all over to DPS. DPS. Now remember, this is a nationwide / worldwide thing. So some of these threats are not coming from Arizona people.
Right.
One of them came from California. There's a couple that came from other areas. Some it's really hard to track down because it's all internet. And you know what they say about the internet, you just never know where it's coming from.
It's true. It's true. So once it is all said and done, once you have results, audits complete, how do you assure Arizonans and actually to your point, the world really, that the results of the audit are trustworthy? The entry point to this whole conversation is sort of around distrust or at least questioning whether some of this stuff is trustworthy. So how do you turn that around?
Well, as I said, I've told them all along, you better be able to prove this stuff 6 ways from Sundays.
Yeah.
You can't just say this. So consequently, everything that they are doing, I'll go back to the 24-hour filming. Not only is the entire operation under 24-hour filming, but over all of those tables that you saw, if you've seen in the pictures of the hand audit, there are cameras over every one of them. And those cameras have captured every single ballot, every live streaming, every time, or recording, I should say, not live streaming, but recording. Every time a ballot was touched, it's been watched the whole time. So as we have these documents and say, these ballots aren't matching up this and that and the other, when we go to court, all of that data is being preserved so that we can say, and under lock and key, so we can take it to the court and say, here, look for yourself. Nobody tampered with anything. Nobody did anything. We saw that these were the problems here. You can do this. And as I said, the boxes of the ballots, we're putting security tape on them. So we don't want, based on what Maricopa County has done to date, quite honestly, we don't trust them on anything anymore. And I'm sorry to say that, but when they've done everything in their power to try and sabotage this, then there are a lot of people saying, why would you give the ballots back to them? Because they'll mess with them. Well, I can't be affording to spend 24-hour security on those ballots for the rest of, however. Yeah. So we need to give them back, but we are putting all the security on it, so we will know if somebody tampered with them.
So it seems pretty clear we haven't seen anything that we would say rises to the level of criminal activity or even potential criminal activity.
Not yet.
Any reason to believe that would change? Have you seen anything that might even hint that would say, oh, we got to look at that one pretty closely? There, any smoke that might be indicative of a fire, I guess is what I'm asking.
I am always very leery about ever jumping out and saying, oh, I think there was fraud or criminal activity or not, because you really can't do that until you have the proof. You can always say 2 and 2 is not adding up to 4. You can certainly say, I've got questions because this isn't working out. But to literally accuse somebody of intentionally criminal activity or fraud or something like that, I'm always very careful not to jump out and do that, because nobody should be disparaged that way unless there's proof.
Okay. And I think one last question for you, Senator. First of all, thank you for all of this time. We're very grateful for it. I think you're clearing up a lot of issues. There is, to your point, a lot of information out there, a lot of misinformation out there, and it's sometimes hard to tell the difference between the two. So the Western Journal, we lean right. We try to be fair, but we lean right. We make no bones about that. Don't try to hide that at all. But we have plenty of people who read us who don't, who are they're fair-minded. They're just looking for information. And there are, as I'm sure you know, there are plenty of people even on the left who look at the mainstream media and think, okay, these guys have gone off the deep end.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to them? What would you say to a Democrat or somebody more liberal, somebody who didn't vote for Donald Trump? Why does this election matter? Why does this audit matter to those folks?
Great question, because the sad thing is the rhetoric has gotten so high on this that it's very hard to even talk to Democrats about this, is because they are 100% convinced in their mind that that there's no problem with the elections, and that, this is all just, the right being crazy and doing the things that they call us all the time. So it's very hard, because a lot of people are dug in at this point. But for those who really are intelligent and have open minds, and truly they may be left, but that doesn't mean that they want the curtain pulled over their eyes. For those, I'm saying, just give us a chance. Give the vendors, the auditors, a chance to show what they come up with or what they don't come up with. And then ask them to prove it 6 ways from Sunday. And then if they do, then have an open enough mind to say, you know what, I think we do have some problems and we need to fix it. Or if they don't prove it, then fine, you can say, okay, I don't think that there's any problem, and I'll go to the booths, the voting booths next year, and know that there's no problems. Either way, I want them to go to the booths knowing that there is no problems.
Right. Regardless of who they're going to vote for.
Regardless of who. That's exactly right.
I have my preferences, but yeah.
Yeah.
Senator, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure talking with you, and I really think that our viewers, our readers are going to get a lot out of this. There is a sad lack of people who are just talking straight about this topic, and it's I know they're going to find it refreshing to hear directly from you. So thank you again.
Thank you very much. It's been an honor.